The forgotten species long ago, in the vast stretches of the galaxy, there was a planet that once thrived with life, known as Earth. But Earth was no more, or so everyone thought. Over time, the stories of humans faded into myths. A great and powerful species that once ruled the stars vanished. To the other alien races, humans were nothing more than a distant memory. They had become legends, passed down by the oldest beings, whispered around campfires, and lost in the shadows of time out in the quiet corners of the galaxy among the stars. The question still lingered, where had the humans gone? On a faraway world, in the heart of the Andromeda Galaxy, a strange signal pulsed through the dark. It was faint, weak at first. The signal wasn't new. It had been there for years, but no one had paid much attention. After all, no one thought humans still existed. No one believed there was anything left to find. But then the signal grew stronger. Across the galaxy, ships, large and small, came to life. Alien fleets, ancient and advanced, who had long forgotten the humans, began to hear it. The signal was like a call, a whisper from a long-lost world. Its pattern was complex, almost like a message, but the meaning was unclear. It didn't belong to any known species. It wasn't a signal from any of the galactic civilizations. This was different. This was something ancient Dot in the Council of the Galactic Races. An emergency meeting was called. The leaders of the various species, all powerful and proud, gathered in a room that stretched out under a shimmering blue dome. Their faces were serious, their minds filled with questions. For centuries, they had lived in peace, unaware of the humans. But now, something was changing. Where is this signal coming from? Asked Velok, the leader of the Zither, a species known for their advanced technology. His voice echoed through the chamber, heavy with concern. It's coming from the outer rim, replied Nylura, a tall, crystalline being who spoke with a calm yet commanding tone. From the ruins of a planet known as Earth. Earth. The word hung in the air. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Earth was nothing more than a name now, a name that belonged to an old story. Everyone had heard of it, but no one truly remembered it. It's impossible, Velok continued. Earth was destroyed. We all know that. But the signal wouldn't stop. Then what is it? Said Kes, the grumpy leader of the Cirques, a race of reptilian creatures. His sharp eyes narrowed. A trick? A hoax? Could it be? Nylura began, her thoughts trailing off. Could it be from them? From the humans? The council fell silent. The mention of the humans sent a chill through the room. No one knew what had happened to them. Some said they had been wiped out in a great war. Others said they had simply vanished, leaving no trace behind. The humans were nothing but legends, Velok finally said, shaking his head. It has been thousands of years. Surely they're gone. But there was one problem. The signal didn't feel like a hoax. It was too real, too strong. I want a team sent to Earth, Nylura ordered. Find out who or what is sending this signal. We need to know the truth. Is it really the humans? An expedition was quickly formed. Ships from various races set out toward the outer rim. As they approached Earth's location, the atmosphere grew tense. No one knew what they would find. Some believed it was nothing more than a forgotten relic, a broken communication system left by a lost species. But deep inside, there was a growing sense of unease as the ships entered the atmosphere, the first. Signs of life appeared, not on the ground, but in the sky. Strange, enormous warships old, yet still intact hovered above the ruins of Earth. They were silent, still, but their presence was unmistakable. The fleet of warships was massive. It stretched across the sky, filling the viewports of the scouts' ships. These weren't just ships. They were weapons ready to strike, but the most puzzling part was the eerie silence. No one was on board, no crew, no life signs. It was as if the ships had been waiting. The scouts sent down a transmission. "We've arrived. But there's something ... strange. There's no one here, just the ships. The planet is dead. The city's destroyed. But the ships, they look alive." The transmission went silent for a moment. Then a new message came through. It wasn't from the scouts. It was from one of the ships. A single phrase. "The humans are coming." The scouts froze in fear. The message echoed in their minds. The humans are coming. But how? The humans were gone, weren't they? The ships hovered silently, like ancient sentinels waiting for a command. The galaxy had forgotten. But the humans had not forgotten the galaxy. The warships, long thought dormant, began to power up ... and the galaxy would never be the same again ... The first echo, the message had been sent, and the galaxy trembled ... The news spread like wildfire. Across every star system, the legends of humanity, once thought dead, were now alive. The very idea that humans could still exist, hidden and waiting, was almost too much to comprehend. The Galactic Council was in chaos. They had to respond, but no one knew how. The message, "The humans are coming," didn't just stir curiosity, it sparked fear. What kind of power could a species like the humans still hold after so many centuries of silence? The Council decided to send scouts to Earth's ruins. A fleet of advanced ships, including representatives from various alien races, left the capital world, heading toward the Earth system. They traveled for weeks, their journey filled with uncertainty. The silence of space was unbearable. As they approached Earth, they noticed something even stranger. The warships that had once been dormant now showed signs of life. Their engines hummed, and the dark void surrounding the planet seemed to throb with an energy that hadn't been there before. The scouts landed on Earth's surface, but what they found left them speechless. The planet was in ruined cities shattered, landscapes barren. Yet there were signs of something else, something unusual. The atmosphere seemed to be alive with energy, pulsating as if Earth itself was waiting for something. One of the scouts, a Zalithian named Dan, stood at the edge of what was once New York City. His eyes scanned the skyline, where only twisted metal and broken glass remained. "Nothing here," Dan muttered, his voice filled with uncertainty. But then the ground beneath them trembled. A low, rumbling sound vibrated through the air. "Did you feel that?" another scout asked. The warships above shifted. Slowly, one of them descended. It moved with a precision that sent a shiver through the scouts. And then, in a burst of light, the ship activated its engines. The scouts' instruments went haywire, unable to track the ship's movements. The last transmission from the fleet was cut off. They were not alone. Silent awakening, the galaxy's attention was fixed on Earth. The mysterious Warfleet was active once again, but no one knew why. Some believed the humans were returning to reclaim their place in the galaxy. Others feared it was a precursor to an invasion. The Galactic Council ordered an emergency meeting to discuss the growing threat. The Zithers, Cirques, and other alien species agreed that something had to be done. The humans, if they still existed, could pose a great danger to the peace they had all worked so hard to maintain. But there was one thing the Council didn't understand. Why the silence? Why hadn't the humans made themselves known? Why were their ships operating without crews? And most importantly, why hadn't they attacked yet? The Council decided to send a larger fleet to Earth. This time, they would not be just scouts. Would be ready for a confrontation. Should it come to that ... As the fleet approached the outer rim, they received a signal. This time, it wasn't just a whisper, it was a clear, undeniable message. Do not approach Earth. The humans are not ready. The transmission was a warning. The voice was ancient, yet familiar. The council's leaders exchanged confused looks. Who sent this? Valok, the Zither leader, demanded. Who dares to speak in the name of the humans? But the message didn't answer. Instead, the warships above Earth powered up even more. Their weapon systems came online, locking onto the approaching fleet. It was clear. The humans were still out there, but they were waiting for something. The first clash tension in the galaxy didn't yet understand. The alien fleets were ready for battle, but they knew that if they attacked Earth, they risked waking something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. The humans' warships continued to operate silently, waiting. But something had shifted. The quiet stillness that once surrounded Earth was now filled with a low, menacing hum. The galaxy waited for the inevitable. The question wasn't if a battle would happen, but when. It came when a small, brave fleet from the Cirques decided to make the first move. Ignoring the warnings, they approached Earth, their weapons prepared for anything. What happened next was beyond anyone's expectations. The moment the Cirque fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, the human warships opened fire. Their weapons were precise, overwhelming. The Cirques were powerful, but nothing could prepare them for the force of the humans' technology. In a matter of minutes, the Cirque fleet was crippled, its ships scattered across space. No one knew how the human ships did it. They didn't fire in traditional ways. Instead, they used an energy pulse that seemed to reach directly into the heart of the enemy ships, disabling them without a single shot being fired. The battle was over before it had even begun. The shadow of the Pastas. News of the Cirque defeat spread. Questions flooded the council. No one understood how the humans had developed such advanced technology. No one understood why they hadn't been wiped out in the first place. In secret, the council ordered a deeper investigation into humanity's past. What they uncovered was more disturbing than any of them could have imagined. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had disappeared. Long ago, they had waged a war so powerful that it wiped out nearly every trace of their civilization. But it wasn't just a war for dominance. It was a war for survival. The humans had created their war fleets not to conquer, but to defend. And then, just as the last battles were won, the humans vanished. They didn't die. They left. For centuries, their ships remained dormant, waiting for a sign that humanity's enemies were still out there. They had not come back to destroy. It was something else, something far worse. They had come to protect. The final stand. As the truth about the humans' past began to surface, the galaxy began to panic. The war fleets were powerful, but the humans had always been mysterious. No one knew why they had disappeared, or what their final purpose had been. But one thing was clear. They were coming back. The Galactic Council convened one final time. This time, they knew they had no choice but to act. The humans' war fleets were too dangerous, too unpredictable. If the humans were returning to reclaim their place in the galaxy, it was a risk that could destroy everything. In a final desperate move, the Council united their forces. A fleet of unimaginable size was formed, ready to confront the human warships once and for all. But when they arrived, they found something they had not expected. The human ships were silent, still, empty. But the galaxy was not alone. The humans had already decided this was their final stand, their last fight to protect the galaxy from what lay beyond the stars. The silence of victory. Battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The human ships, though silent and empty, fought with a precision that sent shockwaves through the entire galaxy. In the end, it wasn't the humans who won, but their legacy. The fleet powered down. The warships fell silent once more. And the galaxy was left with one question. Were the humans truly gone? Or had they only just begun? The silence that followed was the loudest sound of all. the final revelation. The galaxy, now scarred by the silent war, was left with a haunting stillness. The battle had been fierce, and the remnants of the human fleet hung like ghosts in the cold expanse of space. They were not gone, not yet, but they had made their choice, their final decision. There would be no more conflict. The warships powered down, their ancient engines no longer humming with life. The Council, defeated and confused, found themselves at the mercy of the same question that had plagued them since the very beginning. Why did the humans return? For weeks, the galaxy remained in uncertainty. The once powerful alien races gathered, analyzing what had happened, trying to piece together the final puzzle. Yet the humans remained silent. Their ships no longer moved. No transmissions were sent. The galaxy was left with nothing but silence. But then, just as the tension seemed unbearable, a new message emerged. It wasn't a signal from the human warships. It wasn't from any ship at all. This time. It came from deep within the heart of the galaxy. An ancient device, buried under centuries of rubble on a forgotten world, activated. Device hung to life with a bright, flashing light. Its surface flickered, and a hologram emerged. It was an image of a woman, standing tall in a futuristic uniform, her expression calm, yet powerful. She looked out at the galaxy, as though waiting for something to happen. And then her voice echoed across every communication channel. The humans did not return to conquer. We returned to protect. The galaxy stood still as her words rang. Out, the Council, the leaders of the various alien species, watched in stunned silence. It was the first time they had heard the humans speak directly, and it was not what they expected. The woman on the hologram continued. The war we fought was not for territory. It was for survival. The humans, we were the protectors of the galaxy. We fought to keep the balance, to protect the innocent. We sealed ourselves away, waiting for the moment when the galaxy would need us again. There was a long pause, as if the woman's words were sinking in. The council members glanced at each other, trying to make sense of what was being said. The warships, the hologram continued, were not weapons of destruction. They were weapons of preservation. We left them behind to ensure that, should the galaxy fall into chaos, the balance would be restored. The woman's voice became more urgent. The time is not yet over. There are forces beyond this galaxy forces that would bring darkness to all we know. We, the humans, were once the guardians. We will return, but only when the galaxy needs us most. The hologram flickered one last time before it vanished, leaving only an eerie silence behind. The galaxy had been left with a new truth. The humans had not returned to reignite old wars, but to serve as guardians, waiting for the moment when the balance of the galaxy would once again be threatened. Asterisk. Echoes of the past. The galaxy now understood the true purpose of the human war fleets. They were never intended to conquer. They were meant to keep the peace, to guard against the forces that lay hidden in the shadows of the stars. And yet the humans had vanished, leaving only their warships as a silent reminder of their existence. But the revelation brought with it a new question. What forces had the humans been protecting the galaxy from? In secret, the Council began to investigate. They searched through ancient records, scanning the galaxy for any signs of these hidden forces. What they found was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. There were whispers of an ancient enemy, a race, so powerful that no one dared speak of it. The enemy's presence had been felt in the darkest corners of the galaxy, but it had never been seen. For millennia, the humans had kept them at bay, protecting the galaxy from a fate worse than death. The Council realized that the time was coming, the moment the humans had predicted. The galaxy was on the brink of collapse. The forces that the humans had warned about were awakening. Asterisk the hidden enemy. As the galaxy prepared for what was to come, strange events began to unfold. Ships, once thought safe, disappeared into the void. Whole star systems went silent, their once thriving colonies abandoned. As though something was hunting them, a council called for a meeting. The leaders from every race gathered in a desperate attempt to understand the chaos that was unfolding. What was causing these disappearances? Was it the enemy the humans had spoken of? Then the truth came to light. The humans had not left just to protect the galaxy. They had left because they could no longer stop the enemy alone. The enemy had evolved, and they were now powerful enough to break through the human defenses. They had been waiting for centuries, slowly preparing to strike when the time was right. The humans had been their first line of defense, but the enemy was now stronger than ever. Asterisk the awakening. In the quiet reaches of space, the warships began to stir once again. This time, they were not alone. The human fleet was no longer the only force in the galaxy. The enemy had arrived. The human warships, now fully awakened, were ready. But this time, they were not fighting alone. The alien races, once skeptical of the humans, had come together to form a united front. Together, they faced the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Asterisk the final battle. The battle raged across the two stars, an epic conflict that stretched from one end of the galaxy to the other. The humans, once forgotten, stood at the forefront, their warships leading the charge against the dark forces that threatened everything. The final battle was fought with everything at stake. The human fleet, alongside their newfound allies, pushed back the enemy, forcing them to retreat into the depths of space. But the cost was high. Many lives were lost, and many star systems were left in ruins. The warships, though victorious, were damaged beyond repair. But the humans had kept their promise. They had protected the galaxy. Legacy of silence. When the battle ended, the silence returned. The enemy was gone, at least for now. The humans, having fulfilled their duty, powered down their ships once again. The galaxy would never forget the humans, their legacy, their sacrifice, and the silent warships that stood as a reminder of the guardians who had once protected them. The humans were legends once more, but this time their story was not one of mystery or fear. It was one of hope, of protection, and of a promise kept. And so the silence endured. But it was a silence born of peace, not fear. Asterisk the shadow that lurks. The silence of the galaxy stretched on, but deep within, an unsettling tension remained. The humans had kept their promise to protect, but in doing so, they had left behind something even more dangerous, an enemy that would one day return. The threat was not fully gone, only delayed, and now the galaxy was beginning to feel the tremors of that hidden terror dot as the stars glittered across the vast expanse. A new whisper began to echo through the dark void. It came not from the human warships, but from the farthest reaches of the known universe, from a place so distant. Only the most ancient civilizations had heard of it. The dark realm, the birthplace of the enemy, was stirring once more. Asterisk the birth of a new dawn. The first signs were subtle. Communications from distant colonies began to fade. Entire sectors of space fell silent without explanation. Outposts went dark, and fleets that were once able to navigate the space between worlds became erratic, their transmissions garbled with static. Scientists and engineers were baffled, unable to pinpoint the cause. But there were those in the most secret corners of the galaxy who understood the truth. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. This time, the usual leaders were joined by new faces, representatives from the more obscure species that had been quietly observing the galaxy's recent struggles. Among them was a quiet, enigmatic figure, a human, one of the last survivors of the original human colonies who had lived in the shadows for centuries. Lena Dre had watched the galaxy's evolution from the silence of her exile. She had been one of the first to receive the cryptic warning messages encoded within the fabric of human technology. The humans had known this day would come. And now Lena was here to fulfill the legacy of her people. "I've heard the whispers," Lena began, her voice cutting through the murmur of the council. "The enemy is awake again." Velok, the Zither leader, scowled. "We defeated them before. How can they return?" Lena's eyes hardened. "You didn't defeat them, Velok. You only postponed their rise. The enemy, the ones who dream, feed on the life force of entire galaxies. They manipulate time and space to remain hidden, waiting for the right moment to strike." A chill ran through the room as the reality of her words sank in. Asterisk. The path to the unknown, the ones who dream, had existed long before the humans. Ancient and terrifying, they had existed in the deepest corners of the universe, their power so great it twisted reality itself. They were the ones who had been the true threat the humans had kept at bay. The warships had been built not to fight enemies from other species, but to hold the ones who dream back, to keep them dormant. The enemy was not a race of beings, but a force, a collective consciousness capable of reshaping the laws of the universe. Their power had once been sealed away by the first humans, using technologies and techniques unknown to any other species. But the sealing process was fragile, and over the centuries it had begun to weaken. Now the barrier was failing, and the ones who dream were stirring asterisk into the abyss. The new war fleet set out for the heart of the galaxy, the place where the ones who dream had begun to stir. The journey would take them into the deepest, most dangerous parts of space, where the laws of reality were thin, and time itself could warp as they approached the epicenter of the disturbance. The galaxy around them began to change. Stars flickered and dimmed, their light warping into strange patterns. The fabric of space bent and twisted, creating portals into realms that should not exist. Lena's voice crackled through the comms. "Brace yourselves. We are crossing into the domain of the ones who dream." The ships moved forward, but something strange began to happen. The closer they got, the more distant and disoriented the crew became. Time seemed to lose all meaning, and some of the ships began to drift, as if caught in a gravitational pull that defied all logic. It was the mind of the enemy distorting reality, making it impossible to trust their senses. And then, in the depths of the void, they saw it. A colossal, ever-shifting shape, a creature more vast than anything any species had ever encountered. It was not a being in the traditional sense, but a manifestation of the ones who dream's collective consciousness. Its presence rippled through the very space they were in, warping the universe itself. The battle had begun. Asterisk. The rebirth of the war fleet. The universe was once a chaotic, turbulent place, an expanse of countless stars, planets, and species, each fighting for dominance, survival, and existence. And then a species called humans rose to prominence. They were not the strongest, nor the most advanced, but their will to survive, their ingenuity, and their willpower made them a force to be reckoned with. For centuries, humans expanded across the galaxy, building alliances and waging wars with equal fervor. But it wasn't their conquests that defined them. It was their role as protectors. The war fleet was humanity's greatest creation, a vast armada of ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were built for one purpose, to defend the galaxy against forces so ancient and so powerful that they could not be described by conventional means. The ones who had warned the humans of these dark entities were long gone, but their foresight had planted the seeds for something far more significant. The war fleet was not only a symbol of human power, but of their ancient duty to guard the balance of the cosmos. For eons, humanity had vanished. No one knew why. They became nothing more than myths, legends passed down from race to race. The other civilizations whispered about the humans, claiming they had been wiped out, lost to time and war. Yet, deep in the forgotten corners of the universe, their greatest legacy remained hidden, waiting. And now, With the stirring of an ancient enemy, the war fleet would return, its silent engines of destruction coming back to life. The awakening Lenadre stood in the cold, sterile command center aboard one of the few remaining human ships, overlooking the once-forgotten control panels. The hum of the ship's ancient systems, long dormant, vibrated through her bones. The walls were lined with worn-out data pads, relics of a time before the galaxy had forgotten humanity's name. Lena, however, had never forgotten. She had lived in the shadows for decades, quietly waiting and learning, preparing herself for this moment. A moment where the lost human fleet, the war fleet, would rise once again. The stars outside the viewport sparkled like cold jewels against the velvet backdrop of space. But even the beauty of the cosmos couldn't wash away the fear that had settled in Lena's chest. Fear of the unknown, of what the war fleet would become. And more importantly, fear of what had been sleeping beneath the galaxy's surface. The ones who dream. In the ancient archives hidden beneath the surface of Earth, the origins of the war fleet were revealed. It was not a creation born of necessity, but of prophecy ancient protectors who had foreseen the awakening of a dark and destructive force. The ones who dream were not beings as others understood them. They were ancient entities that existed beyond the boundaries of space and time, able to manipulate reality itself. Their hunger for the universe was insatiable, and they had consumed entire galaxies before. When the humans first learned of them, they had constructed the war fleet. It was a fleet built to counter the ones who dream, not through sheer firepower, but through the bending of space itself, using weapons that could silence the enemy by altering the very fabric of existence. But the fleet was not just meant for defense. It was a reminder to the galaxy that the humans had always been watching, even when no one else was. And now, after thousands of years, the fleet had lain dormant, waiting for the day when the galaxy would once again need its protectors. That day had come. Lena's fingers traced the old console, activating the systems one by one. The ship shuddered as power surged through the network, and then the hum of the warship's engines began to pulse through the entire command deck. The sound was not just mechanical. It was alive. The ship's systems, ancient and highly sophisticated, resonated with the presence of their long-gone creators. Lena could feel the weight of history in that sound, an echo from the past that was now awakening. Her mind raced as she activated the communication systems. She would need to contact the rest of the fleet. Lena wasn't the only one who knew. The time had come. The galaxy was on the brink of destruction, and only the war fleet could restore the balance. The search for the fleet. The journey to activate the war fleet had been long, and Lena knew it had to be done in secrecy. The galaxy wasn't ready to face the truth of humanity's past. What would they say if they knew that the war fleet had been designed not to conquer, but to protect against forces so ancient that no one but the humans understood their true nature? The fleet's activation wasn't a simple task. Lena had to travel to multiple hidden human outposts across the galaxy, gathering information and unlocking long-forgotten relics. Each outpost held pieces of the puzzle codes, maps, keys to the high vaults that contained the war fleet's location and power. Her first stop was a hidden base on the outskirts of the Orion system, once a training ground for human soldiers, but now abandoned. There, in the darkened corridors of the base, she found the first piece, an old data module that, once activated, gave her the coordinates to the fleet's resting place. The fleet had been buried beneath a dying star, shielded by the very forces that the war fleet was created to protect. Lena had expected to find them here deep in the remnants of an old, forgotten battle. She knew that the fleet's final location was the only place that could hide it from the enemy dot as she ventured. Deeper into the base, Lena's heart beat faster. The systems were old, yet still functional, the data feeds alive with the pulse of human history. It was here that she learned of the prophecy. The war fleet would rise when the galaxy was on the verge of destruction, when the enemy would return to claim all Dot, and now that time was upon them. Unleashing the fleet, the journey to the fleet was perilous. Lena's ship, the Cadenza, was one of the few remaining human vessels. Its systems were aging, but still functional just enough to navigate the treacherous regions of space where the war fleet lay hidden. The journey was long, and every moment Lena spent on this solitary mission only made her more aware of the task at hand. Dot, as she neared the fleet's final location, Lena began to notice the strange disturbances in space. The fabric of the universe itself seemed to tremble, as if something was pushing against the boundaries of reality. It was subtle at first, but soon it became impossible to ignore. The ones who dream were already active. Their influence was spreading across the galaxy, seeping into the very essence of space. Lena's ship began to shudder under the strain. It was as if the galaxy itself was fighting back, not wanting the war fleet to return. She fought to maintain control, adjusting the ship's trajectory as she closed in on the coordinates. And then, before her, the war fleet emerged from the shadows of a dying star. The ships were massive, their hulking forms glowing faintly against the darkened void. The fleet's power was evident in every detail, from the massive weapons that lined the ships' hulls to the energy shields that flickered into existence. As Lena approached, these were not mere warships. They were ancient, living creations, each vessel a force of nature in itself. The war fleet was awake, and it was ready. The heart of the fleet, Lena's breath, caught in her throat as she finally docked with the flagship, the largest and most powerful vessel in the fleet. It was a gargantuan structure, its metal skin gleaming with a strange, ethereal glow. As Lena disembarked and made her way to the control center, she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. This ship had been built to face the ones who dream, to prevent the galaxy from falling into their grip. And now it was time to awaken its true power. The control room was unlike anything Lena had ever seen. The walls were lined with ancient symbols, and the air hummed with a power that seemed to flow through every inch of the ship. At the center of the room, the heart of the fleet, stood a massive console, its interface glowing softly. Dot, as Lena approached, a voice that was not her own spoke. It was the voice of the fleet's eye, an entity that had been with humanity since the dawn of the war fleet. "Welcome, Commander Lena Dre. We have waited for you." Lena's heart skipped a beat. She knew this was no ordinary AI. This was the culmination of all of humanity's hopes, fears, and strength. This was the embodiment of their last stand. "Prepare the fleet," Lena said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for everyone, for the galaxy." The AI responded, its voice calm yet full of power. "It is time. The war fleet has been reborn.